We're just waiting for all to join. We'll start in a maximum 2 minutes. Yeah, just waiting for all to join. So I think we'll start, and I request my co-host Sukanya to please start the live streaming as well.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to the CSE-NMCG Webinar on Contextualizing Urban Water Bodies Management in India, Approach, Priorities and Planning and Mechanisms. So let's start with some housekeeping rules. I request everyone to keep your mic muted unless you want to say something. Please raise your hand. We'll be recording the webinar and the link of the recording will be sent to all. So allocated time for each speaker is 10 to 15 minutes and we'll be doing the question and answer session in 25 minutes at the end of the webinar. Please watch the chat window where we'll be posting biography and links to resources. Raise your hand if you want to share something. Submit your questions during the sessions in the Q&A window instead of chat box. So the registration statistics for this webinar is we have over 230 plus registrations from 150 cities across 25 countries. So we have a diverse group of participants joining today. The category of organization are academic, industry, government, students, civil society, donors, NGO, and media. And participants with different professional background like engineers, architect, planner, ecologist, social scientists, others. And we have a gender ratio of 36% of female participants and 63% of male participants. So this webinar we are doing under the CSE-NMCG Capacity Building and Action Research Initiative. This is the year 2. The aim of the initiative is making Ganga basin cities water sensitive. About the event in the webinar, like the capacity building and action research initiative is aimed at improving river health and flows. There are several key focus areas under the initiative like water sensitive urban design and planning, urban water efficiency and conservation, decentralized wastewater treatment and local reuse, urban groundwater management, urban water bodies, and lake management. The initiative is aimed at engaging 1,300 plus member state municipal functionaries and other sector players involved in promoting sustainable urban water management. It is a part of the series of ongoing efforts by NMCG aimed at ensuring convergence of Namami Gange mission with national flagship urban missions like Amrit, Smart Cities, Swachh Bharat Mission, Hriday, NULM, and other missions. So the activities that we are proposed to do in the 3-year activity plan, it's like 40 plus activities over 3 years, 24 trainings, including webinars, conclaves, field exposure visits, capacity building of 300 plus state development authorities, municipal functionaries, develop practitioners guide on all the thematic focus areas, developing help desk and web portal for hand-holding support to design and implement model SUTP intervention. So this webinar, the webinar is aimed to enhance participants' knowledge on urban water bodies rejuvenation and management. It will sensitize practitioners on the planning mechanisms for protecting water bodies, pollution abatement techniques, ecology and biodiversity aspects, and the enabling framework for water bodies management in India. The key highlights of the webinar will be we'll be discussing the WSCTP approach for water bodies management, enabling framework under NMCG 2.4. We'll be learning of different from the experts of different experiences in India, like focusing on cities of Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi, Pune, Alwar, etc. In the case studies are based on the rejuvenation, pollution abatement, ecology, linkages with groundwater, wastewater, urban planning, livelihoods, etc. The speakers for the webinar are the moderator, Mr. Jitendra Singh Kapoor, Director of Water Program at CSE, will be moderating the webinar. And speakers are Rajiv Ranjan Mishra, Technical Advisor from National Institute of Urban Affairs, Raj Bhagat from WRI, Arun Krishnamurthy from Environmentalist Foundation of India, Dr. Prasanna Jogdio, co-founder of Lemnian Green from Pune, and Dhruv Pasuja representing CSE. So the agenda of the webinar is that we'll start with welcome and context setting that will be led by Jitendra Singh Kapoor, and then we further session from Rajiv Ranjan Mishra, Raj Bhagat, and Krishnamurthy, Prasanna Sir, Dhruv, and we'll be heading the question and answer session at the end. Yeah. So let's start. I'll pass on this to Jitendra Sir to set the context and of the training, and I'll be sharing the profile of each speakers with you on the chat box. Thank you.
Thanks, Shivani. And on behalf of CSE, let me just introduce my colleagues, Dhruv Pasuja, Shivani, and Sumita. And we are very happy to host this webinar, which provides us actually with a very good opportunity to not only improve our own programs and capacity development work at CSE, but also for the NMCG CSE program. It provides inputs from experts who have kindly agreed to come today to develop our own content and delivery of our modules in a better way. So for us, it's a privilege to have you all here today morning, post Diwali. So we are very grateful to all the speakers who could make it today. Briefly, I would just say a few words about the webinar. See, the focus of the webinar here is rejuvenation focus. And we know that the rejuvenation focus can be explained in terms of a threat, essentially at the moment we are looking at. In a webinar, we are not supposed to actually get into a lot of details. So what we would like to hope and expect from this is an understanding on the conceptual aspects of the current situation and rejuvenation, and at best perhaps on the planning side. So how do you actually plan? And given the diversity of the context in India, given the large agroclimatic diversity which we have, this webinar is not supposed to include all the typologies of states and climates and water bodies. So we will do our best to include what we can present. Again, with that focus on developing a conceptual understanding on the issue which we are addressing today and on the planning aspects. We are also addressing lakes and water bodies in the urbanization context. So we are very happy to have speakers who will refer to different aspects of the urbanization impact on the water bodies, whether it is pollution, whether it is encroachment, and the kind of urban planning and policy aspects which we are looking at as a final take from this initiative. We know that urban lakes and water bodies have a value, and many times it's a challenge to give this value or define the value in some terms. But this webinar is not engaging in that issue, because we all value, and we may not be able to put an economic value, but we know the value of lakes and water bodies. We are also mindful, what we are mindful of in this kind of a webinar or a learning event is the kind of potential and the limitations which we are faced with. Potential for rejuvenation, and also the limitations given the current contextualization in which the urban lakes and water bodies are, which is based on who is encroaching. And if it's a very poor encroaching, then it's one kind of aspect. It's not just an issue of technical aspect of removing encroachments. And therefore, what should be done is also beyond just a technocratic approach of how to rejuvenate lakes per se. It has many dimensions, and some of the risks will be brought out by the CSE presentation, which Dhruv is going to make on the daily experience. But of course, we are very much keen to learn from the experience of Raj Bhagat, Arun, Prasanna, who will share their context. I'm very happy to have Shri Rajivanjan Mishraji in this webinar. He has been a leading light in the Namami Gange program, and he's not just a knowledge resource in terms of the book he has written on Gangari rejuvenation, but is also a champion of addressing water and wastewater from an enlightened perspective of different aspects of social and technical. So we're very happy to have Sir here and grace this occasion. And Sir, we would like to start from you, and we would request you to make the first presentation, and then we will proceed. Thank you.
So you're on mute, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Dipender, and all your team. I'm also very happy to see the other co-panelists, and let me tell you right in the beginning, I have not brought a presentation because I thought all of you are going to talk much more about specific experiments and your experiences. I will talk more about my own experiences, about how this program got developed. As Dipender is saying, it was very nice for me to see that is third year of the program, because when in 2020 we launched it, I think there are a lot of if and buts about this program, but I have been watching the progress, and initially 3-4 sessions I spent a lot of time in these programs. See, you mentioned about my association with Namami Gange program. When we look at a river, I think I will talk little on the river for 2-3 minutes and then come to the water body, because for me the challenge seems to be where to start. The thing is, if you only look at one wetland or one water body and try to do it, you cannot do justice unless you look at the entire surrounding and entire ecosystem. This I learned while dealing with Ganga Mission, because normally people think that rejuvenation word also is of not a very long origin. Normally we keep on talking about cleaning. So I think all the time our focus is on pollution related things. which is important. I'm not saying that's not important. Perhaps that can be the starting point. But this approach, how it developed when we started looking at this program, initially we thought that, okay, we have to look at the river, and as you know, the integrated river basin management, that was a kind of overall perspective. Now, when you look at the river basin, or from the entire length of river, that to length of more than 2,500 kilometers, you will see several components which needs to be rejuvenated to really rejuvenate a river of this size. So there are sub-basins, there are different components. And I think I was also told to speak about enabling frameworks, emerging priorities, and Government of India things. See, today we are talking more on the water bodies and wetlands. It's not that these things have emerged recently. If you look at historically, I think all these acts, whether it is Water Act, which came much earlier, later on EP Act, all of them talk about these things. But you know what is there in the Water Act? Primarily, we talk about not to dump any waste or effluent into the water bodies. So I think all the time the focus in the beginning is about keeping it clean, not to pollute it. And then that is how it all started. Then you have a national water policy, which also talks about it. National Water Mission came in 2009, and then policy, of course, it gets revised. See, I think there is the increasing importance of water body has started coming up. I think not many people are aware about that program, but in Environment Ministry, there is to be one National Lake Conservation Plan. I think that was one of the beginning, 2001 or so. I think very early lake conservation program was started. Now, if you look at, I think there is a lot of clarity is needed about what is the urban lake, because we are talking more about urban wetland or urban water body. I think the definition there, etc., there's a lot of issues. We'll not get into that. Later on, the wetland program also started in MOEF, and 2017 the wetland rules also came. Now, if you look at the wetland rules, I think the issue is the urban part gets little lost in that, because we are talking of a much bigger ecosystem. So I think that focus on urban part gets lost. And then later on, they came up by merging this wetland vertical and also the lake conservation vertical in MOEF, and they came up with a program called National Plan for Conservation of Aquatic Ecosystem, NPCA. Now that's one source. I'm trying to put that's one, and then MOEF is the right ministry, a kind of ministry for regulation, enforcement, etc. So legally, I think this is the latest program is NPCA, where you end. Come to the other side, let's say come to the water sector or water ministry. So I think much earlier we came up with a RRR, RRR program. That was again mostly for agriculture and all that, not much again on the agriculture, on the urban side. So I think looking at the river rejuvenation program of a size of Namami Gange, I started feeling that first of all, whatever STP, etc. you prepare and make, they have to be sustainable. So bring some PPP, bring efficiency, but look at the urban river as a concept. Look at the urban area as a kind of a separate area, not separate, disconnected kind of thing, but as a kind of separate or exclusive area where priority has to be given. And I think reason is very obvious for all of us to understand, because maximum challenge to the natural resources is also coming from the urban area. We all know we are urbanizing at a faster rate, and we are going to become more and more urban. Maybe by 2050, we will be more urban than rural. So I think it's perhaps the most important time to give all those things which we talk in the MOEF and all those things, the environmental thing. I think they have to be enforced, they have to be applied much more seriously in the urban area. So here I will also mention, I think this is very much there on the NMCG website, a very landmark decision came about the authority order. I'm giving a little background because all of you are anyway knowing much more technically about your work. But this is an order which for the first time brings a kind of certain principles for river rejuvenation. And it actually enlarges the concept of river as it should be. So it says that we will manage river as one system, and river means floodplain, river means wetlands, river means forest, river means springs, river means afforestation and biodiversity. So I think several things have been brought together in one large Government of India policy statement in 2016, October. So I think it's very much on the NMCG site. You say Ganga Authority order on Google also, it will come out. But I think that's a very, very important reference point because it's very revolutionary. I will not get into that because that itself needs a lot of things. It also delegated a lot of authority to NMCG. There is a concept of environmental flow, which came there, and then NMCG was empowered to assess and notify environmental flow. But I think the concept of wetland came there. And then see, I think all of you are working, I think we will be having interesting cases, but isolated work on the wetlands actually will take us forward, but not to a very scaled up level. So we started looking at wetlands and linking them with the rivers. So you take a stretch of the river, maybe 20 kilometer, 50 kilometer, look at all the wetland, look at urban, peri-urban. I think one of you is also going to talk about peri-urban wetlands. So I think look at all of them together and then look at what kind of action plan is emerging. So I think that was the idea. And that is where we started working with NIUA and also with CSE in a very active way from NMCG. Both these projects, I think both these activities started from NMCG. That let's look at managing urban river as a discipline, how you plan and how you practice. So I think this is the whole thing has started. And we are all aware, now we talk about several concepts: water sensitive urban design, sponge city concept, green blue infrastructure. I think integrated urban water management. I think that several kinds of things we keep on talking. But essentially, I will tell you, essentially we have to look at them as one system. If you look at SDG 6.6 also talks about water and its related ecosystem, and very clearly talks about mountains, forest, wetlands, everything this also says. So this is the kind of enabling framework. We have been given that mandate, it has to be done. Now, when you have to do it, the issue of finances will also come, and then how you do it. There are different programs, there's different urban missions. I think in the beginning, a lot of urban missions were mentioned, a lot of programs were also mentioned from the water resources side. Now the priority started, I think, from Namami Gange mission. I think that was a priority of the government, and a lot of priority initiative on wetlands and other floodplain rejuvenation, floodplain protection, demarcation, all these things started. And then you have also mentioned that one major thrust came in 2019. I mean, before that, sanitation took the larger attention, like Swachh Bharat Mission, ODF and all that. Then Jal Shakti Abhiyan was launched. I think you will remember Jal Shakti Abhiyan was launched in 2019. And then that brought the focus on water. And Urban Development Ministry also, you will see the Amrit 2.0 or the some of the missions which emerged. I think that the increasing focus upon water came. I think it was there. It was very much there in the Amrit 1.0 also, or Smart City also. But I think more and more projects trying to rejuvenate water sources started coming up. People's involvement also increased. And later on, of course, for the rural area, Jal Jeevan Mission came for the drinking water sector. But coming back to Jal Shakti Abhiyan, and now we are knowing about the Amrit Sarovar scheme and all that. Amrit 2.0 now has got a provision of spending up to 5% is basically of the fund is earmarked for the rejuvenation of water body, wetlands, and also green area. 4% for water bodies and 1% for the green area. And it talks about different kinds of things. So I think we have come a big way about these things. We will come back to this, whether this kind of finances are enough, or I think how we actually utilize these finances. I think that's also a challenge. I think some of your experiences will also throw some light on that. But now coming back to this program, so I think when we started looking at the managing urban river, I think with CSE, we tried to develop this water sensitive urban design. And as I told you, there are different components. The same authority order also talks about groundwater and surface water interaction, because it says that the connectivity of water should be maintained in a river, and it talks about 3 types of connectivity. The lateral, longitudinal is clear. Lateral means the floodplain and all that, and also vertical connectivity. So that means flowing water as well as the groundwater. So I think the aquifer. So with NIUA from NMCG, we started looking at, which was also told by the group of IIT, consortium of IIT, which made the basin plan, about how we can bring all of it together. So managing urban river led to a kind of documentation called Urban River Management Plan. Again, I think what is the Urban River Management Plan? It is very much available on the websites of NMCG as well as NIUA. But here I think I will just enlist the 10 points which are there in the urban river management plan, because this will actually bring a kind of larger picture, and we can look at each of these aspects, and then different stakeholders are working on that. First is regulating floodplain activities, the activities on the floodplain, because floodplains are important. Now today you may say that we are talking about urban wetlands, but some of the urban wetlands will also maybe in the floodplain. So I think it's very important to understand that water body and floodplain relationship. It's certainly the lifeline for the river. And also for the communities who go and construct there, they also suffer. There was a discussion about encroachment, pollution for the river. So I think in the locality urban area, you look at the pollution, different sources of pollution, how you do it. And now we are talking increasingly about comprehensive city-wide plan, making it inclusive. So I think all those things I will not go, but yes, pollution becomes another aspect, which will be also very important to apply when you are looking at the wetland. Then third agenda or third major area which we identified in managing urban riverage or URMP is rejuvenate water bodies, wetlands. Because urban wetlands are absolutely important. They are absolutely in the danger of getting lost. I think when you will talk about Bangalore, when you talk about, I think Bangalore, we have been talking about Bangalore for 3 months endlessly. But Bangalore is not an isolated case. Unfortunately, I think the situation is almost similar in most of the larger cities. Then the fourth becomes riparian buffer. How can you enhance the riparian buffer? So that becomes another very important area which will be linked ecologically to different things. Then increasing use of treated wastewater. So first of all, you create treatment capacity, and then can you reuse? Again, you have to look, can some of it can also go to the water bodies. I think some of the cities are experimenting it to actually bring water, not so much in Ganga basin area or the main stem of Ganga, because perhaps there is plenty of water. We have more challenge here. Then sixth is maximize good quality return flow. So that means you reuse and then actually give back some water, good quality water to the river or to the water bodies, instead of only dumping our wastewater there. Then it talks about BB also, because this is a kind of not a plan which is only looking at water. It's looking at ecological aspects, economic aspects, and also social aspects. So it also talks about eco-friendly riverfront, because how you connect and how you manage riverfront. Again, riverfront is linked with floodplain. So things are all very much linked. Then we also talked, I think that there was someone who was mentioning about the economic value of these things. So I think what is the economic value of a river or water body or different ecological assets? I think we need to talk in terms of number. We understand that they are valuable and all that, but I think we still are much lagging behind in actually attaching a particular number that this particular wetland or this tank or lake is worth so many crores or so many thousands of crores. So I think that is very important, how you leverage it without damaging that ecological asset, and then how you communicate. And then the 9th and 10th are basically looking at people. So citizen awareness, so that they become water sensitive behavior, and also engaging them. One thing is educating them through quiz and programs and all that, and then there's another thing to actually engage with them. I think some of your experiments, some of your cases will certainly bring that also as one of the important point. I would also like CSE to look at a document. I think you might be already there, and all the participants. We also created a very detailed toolkit for urban management of urban wetlands with the help of SPA Delhi. So I think there are two parts. One part is general guideline, and one is actually a case study of a city called Bhagalpur in Bihar, which has a lot of wetland. Still it is having a lot of water bodies, urban water bodies, but the rate at which they are being lost is really alarming. So we picked it up. It's also linked with a river, but I think so primarily it is looking at two stages. Initially, you try to understand, document because I think it will come from all of you also, that many people will not be knowing in the city that they have lost a wetland and what was there earlier. So I think perhaps there is a lot of need to document them and bring them together, use GIS, do a kind of mapping of these things, then include the other areas, nearby areas. what is the zone of influence, what is the catchment area. So I think we will have to look at all these things to identify. And here perhaps the traditional ecosystem service, I mean, people there traditionally may not be using these terms which we are using here, but actually what was the use, किसके लिए use करते थे, what is the importance of it in the mind of people, some of the older people and all that. So I think, and later on in the second stage we can try to attach some number, but initially we have to do all these kind of things, and then look at some buffer zone, etc., and then after understanding it, you try to go for the action plan, and it's very clear, I think, for that you know what is to be done. So I think what is the boundary, because I think that is a major thing. Encroachment. Now encroachment removal, we may all like all our water bodies to be free from encroachment, but there are a lot of vexed issues there, and then sometimes you have to go by the local laws and all that. But certainly I think a lot of guidelines from NGT, we used quite a lot of them to push these agenda, ecological agenda, because NGT also has been talking about, there is a separate order apart from the river about the urban wetlands, about the wetlands and enumeration of them, inventory of them. I think NGT has been monitoring it also, but I think again at the state level, lot more needs to be done on that. Then what are the activities? Dredging, desilting. Let us be as selective as possible, because I think my fear is now we have got some money under Amrit 2.0. What I told you about the NPCI and all that, the budget available is very limited from the MOEF. So they will pick up some major lakes. I mean, some very iconic lakes. They may pick up Dal Lake and some of these things, but that will not be enough to really help us work at so many places. Amrit 2.0 has some money, so I think people will start making plans. But there we have to be very clear. I think that the caution needs to be, that's why this kind of training will be useful, that let's not try to make again, the solution should not be worse than the problem. So we should not again create so much of civil structure, so much of these things are a kind of compound wall that takes away all the thing, but the ecological rejuvenation gets a back seat. So I think that is something which will be very much needed. So I think when you make the action plan, maybe for afforestation, again afforestation, I will tell you what kind of forest species, the native species should be there. Otherwise, again, in the name of beautification, a lot of money will go, and we may get a kind of a species which is not really very healthy for the water body. So I think that's again something which is there. Then you look at how you can check the flow of polluted water into this. So I think when you do in the stage one, all the survey and all that, and then that is where somewhere you will need STP, somewhere the STP is already there, but it's not functioning. How to make it functional? Somewhere septic plant will be there, somewhere some natural way of, because wetland also can actually treat a lot of it. So I think there are several techniques, maybe some presentation it will come, whether bioremediation, phytoremediation, some of the other things will also come. So I think, and then also look at the biodiversity, because many of them have migratory birds, many of them have the local biodiversity. So I think our action plan ultimately will have to look at that. But this will be successful only when you bring people at the center, the local people, the community. I think somewhere they have to get involved. When we tried to do it for the wetland program, I think not just the urban wetland, but we basically took around 10 kilometers along Ganga in UP, something like, and you see our ignorance. When the proposal came, we were looking at something like 230 wetlands, 10 kilometers both sides of Ganga in UP. That's quite a large distance, almost 1,000 kilometers length. But actually we ended up enumerating more than 280 wetlands when we started actually going and surveying and enumerating. So at least that much has come in the official framework to do it. Again, there will be a lot of issues, less than so many hectares, more than that, how to deal with it. So these are all administrative things which will come up. But I think this is the kind of approach which you have to look at. And then when you think of water sensitive urban design, I think water bodies, groundwater, etc., they make a very, very important role. Stormwater we have been managing primarily through the engineering solutions. The landscape solution is important, and that landscape solution, I think increasingly people are talking. I think there lies solution of some of our problems of urban flooding, and I think that is where perhaps your that solution will have a very important role of the water bodies, urban water bodies, rejuvenated urban water bodies, because primarily you have to depend upon water cycle. Water cycle is undergoing a huge change due to climate impacts. So I think suddenly you have so much of rain and your water bodies are lost. The channels between the wetlands are lost. or they are impacted so badly. We don't even know in many cities where are those channels and what has come on that. So I think that is something which we have to revive, because ultimately we have to protect them. And then when such kind of rain is there, the storm water is there, I think we have to, in the water sensitive urban design, we have to use all these things, all the challenges in some way, that your urban design actually takes advantage of all these new challenges which will come in future with huge impact on the water cycle, and then do it. We can call it by any name, but primary thing is to understand water cycle and see all the elements of it which play some role, learning from how they used to perform the role before be messed up with so aggressively with them, and then bringing them back to them. I think that is something which is very important. So I think more ideas and more specific examples will come. But before I end, my request will be, no system can be taken in isolation. So I think when we are talking of water sensitive urban design, I think first of all, this is very important subject now, especially in view of the climate change. Water has to take a much more bigger role in climate change narratives than it has taken earlier, and it's changing. I think people are talking more about that. And in that, the wetlands, the urban wetlands, urban water bodies, they are perhaps the most important element. But every other element is also important. Several programs are also there. All the programs will ultimately not give you enough money from government sources to do it. So a lot of things have to be done at the local level. You have to also mobilize some funding from some other resources. Corporates also can play a major role, because when you talk of Bangalore and when the flood is affecting that kind of city, it also affects the logistic business. So business also must realize that they should contribute. And now we are all talking about not only SDG, but now ESG. So I think perhaps we have to also leverage and look at these opportunities, because I think these guidelines, these things will be there. So where we can mobilize some sort of resources from them also and involve them in the whole rejuvenation thing, because they will also monitor what we are doing. Because I think the challenge is very huge, but at the same time, there is a kind of good alternative also. And most important thing is, the priority is now there. Water is coming in the discussion room. People are talking about it, and people are also doing about it. I am aware, I think many of you will also share your thoughts. Thousands of people are actually working on rejuvenating tanks, water bodies, more so in the area which are water scarce. Still the area where we see a lot of water, I think it is even more challenging to mobilize people. But yes, even in those areas, people are looking at it. Younger generation, perhaps we have more hope with them. And how exactly we mobilize all of them and bring everything together is the real issue before us. So thank you once again, and wishing all of you a very good enlightened discussion in the webinar, and my best wishes to CSE.
Thank you, sir. And yes, I would like to endorse what Sri Rajiv Ranjan ji has said. I think he played a seminal role in this transfer of focus in NMCG from STPs only to water and water lake, river rejuvenation. Because you can't save Ganga unless you also focus on rejuvenation. So I think that's a great thing which Sri Mishra ji had done there. And he may have to leave, but I would just request him to stay for the next presentation also. And then we will also invite some questions which Sunita will moderate. So I would now like to invite Raj. It's Raj Bhagat now, and to share his presentation and give us your ideas on the work which you have done. Raj.
Sure. I'll start the presentation just in a minute. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Perfect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only, I think, Raj. I think Raj is just joining in. Might be a power cut.
speakers who can answer on Q&A also.
I think Raj has just dropped out of the call, maybe at a technical issue at his end. So I think the questions posted around studying water quality using remote sensing techniques and case studies and water stewardship, and also considering health hazards by algal bloom and water body. I think they all will be discussed in the presentations which are following. I think Prasanna will talk about ecological restoration of water bodies and linking those to other aspects. And we will have Raj talking about remote sensing data for water bodies management in terms of encroachment and pollution. And we'll also have a lot of case studies being done shown by Arun as well. So I think we'll just wait a couple more minutes for Q. So I think in the interest of time, I would like to invite Arun to present his slides, and I think Raj can follow after Arun because I think he might take a little more time.
Can you just give me like 1 minute if you don't mind? I'll have to move in position because I was not prepared. Just give me 1 minute, I'll move in position.
Please.
Please also say this one.
Actually, Arun is he has an injury, so I think he is just getting his system together. So that we just got to know that he has an injury, and that is why he's just arranging his system right now.
Can you guys see me?
Yes, we can see you, Arun.
My case study is going to be live in action because I come to you from the Devnahalli Lake in Bengaluru. First of all, thanks for organizing this and for giving me an opportunity to connect with all of you this afternoon. My name is Arun Krishnamurthy. My greetings, salutations to the previous speaker. Extremely valid points, something which makes a lot of sense for us on field, which translates to reality when it comes to protecting habitats such as this. Although my topic is Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, as Sir mentioned, it's the same story across India. When we work across 16 states in the country, the one question that I'm often asked is like, tell me which state takes care of its lakes better. And often I tell them the one thing that connects us together as one country is our ability to abuse lakes and ponds all over, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Ladakh to Lakshadweep, Arunachal to Andamans, or from Gujarat to Manipur. Although we as a civilization had greater, deeper understanding of surface water body, conservation of water, whether it's the stepwells of West India, temple tanks of South India, the large farm feeding lakes, and the small community ponds, over a period of time, due to disconnect with the local environment, as most of us are modern day nomads who are migrating from one part of the country to the other, or from one part of the world to the other, there is little understanding of local geography, ecology, or how the local conditions work. We are just being walking, talking consumers. We're being citizens of a certain locality, but not human in a being in that particular habitat. And I come to you from the Devnahalli Lake, which is just behind me, which we've restored in the last 6 months. And today we've had, as Sir was mentioning, community participation is critical. Today we had almost 65 volunteers joining us here for a cleanup, for a plantation. What you see behind me is the Devnahalli Lake, and there's a fort towards this side. And then the highway, the Kashmir, Kanyakumari, especially the Bengaluru-Hyderabad highway, which runs behind. The human impact on this water body is immense. There is a busy national highway stretch. There is a farm practice which is in the immediate vicinity of this water body. And then the fact that there are household units, nearly 600 plus, most of their drainage flowing towards the lake's surface water area. And then an archaeologically significant fort which also holds value, adds value proposition to this water body. Now, having said all this, this is a habitat. Now, this habitat for the crabs, snakes, birds, frog, etc., is losing its value simply because we want a beautiful water body where we see only water, sheets and sheets of water. We don't care what the quality of the water is, as long as we're able to just see water. And then we want a paved pathway around the lake. We want public recreation space around the lake. But then the whole scenario of the lake being a habitat, the lake catering to different life forms, is often forgotten. And most of us visualize, or most of us experience a surface water body such as a lake or a pond during non-monsoon days. So we have little or no understanding of how the lake works during monsoons, the kind of flow that this water body receives, the quality and the quantum. What is the amount of water that's going to reach the lake? What is the quality of water that's reaching the lake? And what is the time period that it takes for the water to reach this particular storage point from its catchment area? Now, with all of this minimal understanding and a landform that is constantly changing, just around the Devnahalli Lake, if 120 new households are to be built over the next 2 years, every household unit is actually building a compound wall, is changing the land pattern, is increasing the height of their plot. Now, all of this is urbanization, which we can't get away with. This is going to happen. But then what is its impact on the lake? The flow, the surface flow by itself gets altered dramatically, thereby creating new puddle pockets, which were not meant to be, and which redirects the water that is supposed to reach lakes such as these. In this event, what we're doing is we're just altering the whole lake hydrology, its ecological parameters, and thereby making these become nothing but dumping grounds for construction debris, especially if they're along the roadside, and a lot of non-degradable trash. Now, all of this is actually creating a problem when it comes to urbanized pockets during monsoon days. The rest of the year, it actually doesn't matter for most of us, simply because our home units don't get flooded, our roads are not flooded, because the storage points which these lakes that they are actually not able to hold the water. Now, this is exactly where the problem is. Even 2015, when Chennai witnessed one of its most dramatic flooding, urban floods in once in 100 years, I received a call from a gentleman who said, "You spoke so vehemently about rainwater harvesting. I harvested rainwater. Now it's in my bedroom, in my kitchen, in my hall. It's everywhere in the house." So the reason being simple: change of land use pattern, how we are altering the natural habitat characteristics, and that is leading to such dramatic changes when it comes to storage, when it comes to habitat. Now, what are the simple solutions? As again mentioned by the esteemed previous speaker, there are simple logical solutions that can be rolled out for every single lake or a pond. It goes from removing non-degradable trash. There's a lot of invasive vegetation which takes over a lot of these habitats that has to be removed. Removal of garbage, removal of invasive vegetation by itself would give us a clear understanding of the system. Then comes the desilting. The desilting of the lake is often misunderstood. The deeper we go, the more water we can store in the lake. No, it doesn't work that way. The silt, sand, clay composition of any surface water body has to be understood. The quantum of silt expected over a period of time. And given that these lakes are surface water bodies in heavily populated urban centers, and where we are only going to have embankments, which are, even if they are stone pitched, even if there are toe walls which are constructed with hard imposed concrete, the larger damage that flooding might cause when in the event of climate change, where we have excess rainfall in a very short time, there are chances of embankment breach, which would send sheets and sheets of water, unimaginable amounts of water into urban pockets where none of us is trained to cater to a water calamity. So the desilting, the deepening of the water body is extremely critical. The geological parameters to be properly understood, what is the storage potential of that water body, and how to actually What is the real-time potential that the lake has within which we can store water to be understood, inflow, outflow dynamics. Most of these lakes, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, or Thane, Kalyan, when you see most of these water bodies, they're system tanks. Every lake is connected to one or the other, and then there is a larger basin into which it empties. So we cannot work in silos where we just randomly choose a particular lake and change its condition, but we'll have to work on any given lake, keeping in mind the other lakes which are upstream and downstream in correspondence to this water body. So the desilting, deepening of the water body to be carefully done, understanding the geology, the hydrology, the storage potential, and the demography. Embankments, and just stone pitching or just ensuring that we have concrete walls doesn't support a lake or a pond. Rate of evaporation, egg-laying life forms losing their habitat where each can survive. All of this gets altered when we have civic infrastructure being put into a natural habitat. So definite care must be taken. It has to be an ecological restoration. Ecological restoration has its own beauty. And if it's okay with all of you, I'm just going to tilt my camera. The grass and everything that you see on the bund is beautiful. It's okay to have just wild growth. But all that we want is sanitized concrete platforms, paver blocks, which actually don't serve any purpose. And other than the fact that it gives you a urbanized look, it actually is not supporting the lake. So the embankment has to be a proper dual structure and an inclined structure which is gradually descending into the water body. It can't be cut bunds. It can't be embankments which are just built as dam walls. We are not creating storage tanks. We are creating habitats when we are restoring a lake or a pond. And then finally comes the inlet outlet regulation. When we look at the inlet outlet regulation, where is the water coming from? What is the quality of water that's entering the lake? And what is the exit point? Where is the water leaving to? And monsoon days, non-monsoon days, quantum quality understanding. All of this is critically important when we are trying to conserve a surface water body in this country, because we're not just catering to the human population, we're going to be catering to an ecology, to varying life forms. And the littoral limnetic benthic balance in a lake, it can't be just a uniformity. We have to understand that the lake has its own characteristics, and we, the so-called experts, can't just walk into a water body and dismantle it so that we have a picture perfect image that can be put on social media platforms. No, a lake or a pond is a responsibility, and with that responsibility, we need to understand how we restore it. Islands, percolation trenches, recharge wells, and to foresee issues that might crop up. In the name of proposing a solution to an existing problem, we cannot create newer problems. Our solution has to be sustainable. Our solution has to be cost effective. For restoration of surface water bodies, we don't need large amounts of money. We need mobilization of resource. Mobilization of resource in the form of human individuals who actually take part in conservation. Whether it's in Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh or even in Kashmir, as far as Arunachal or Gujarat, there are cultural celebrations which are built around water bodies. All that this teaches us is as simple as this, that surface water bodies had a spiritual impact on people. People realize that God is in this and not in any other form. And that community celebration, community respect, and community responsibility is something which we have to collectively build. And I think this is a beautiful platform where we have think tanks, where we have senior most officials, nation builders, and a lot of tech giants, as I see some of them here, all of us getting together, the student population that's watching. It is a collective responsibility. No one man, one organization, or one system can change or can hold any of this. It is our collective responsibility towards our sustainable future. And we all have a responsibility towards this. What can we simply do? Think of where your water is coming from. When you open a tap today at home, think of where that water is coming from. If you're in Bangalore, did the Kaveri feed you? If you're in Chennai, did the Veeranam tank feed you? If you're in Hyderabad, where did the water come from? Delhi, Gurgaon, wherever in this country, wherever you are, where did your water come from? What is the quality of water that you're sending out? Where is your water going to? Which urban river is your sewage feeding? What are the kind of products, chemicals that you're using at home, which is going out as residue towards these water bodies? Urban flooding, urban sewage, mosquito menace, groundwater contamination, waterborne diseases, all of this starts at home. It is the government's responsibility to build infrastructure. It is the government's responsibility to treat water, no denying it. It is also the citizens' responsibility to be careful in what we use and what we send out. Relate the human body to the larger planet and just think about everything that we are putting on us, from hair to skin to clothes, is actually the residue that is going out from our homes, which is actually contaminating our lakes, ponds, and rivers. And you might ask a simple question. What is a big difference that it's going to cause if one of us is going to stop using these contaminating products? Simple, it has to start somewhere. That's it. We can't change the world. We can definitely be a change from within ourselves. And a platform like this for collaboration should also be about action points and agenda items. Whether it's the Musi Rani Sagar in Alwar, Rajasthan, that we as a step well restored last year, where we're still using a lot of aerators, filtration systems to actually keep this stagnant water body up and running. Or whether it's lakes such as these, the Devnahalli Lake, where we're not using any high-end technology, but we're using system preferences. Yes. How can the lake take care of its own self without human intervention? The peripheral trenches, the nutrient beds, the constructed wetlands, a lot of which is actually supporting a system like this. So let's put science and logic in the forefront. Let's leave behind emotional attributes, and let's come together collectively to revive India's natural habitats in the form of lakes and ponds, because this is a beautiful home to several unknown life forms. Just because we can walk straight and talk loud, let's not consider ourselves to be a superior species. We are not. Without electricity, we do not know where to get fresh water from. Without somebody growing our food, we do not know how to make our own food. We are dependent species. And being a dependent species with the ability to comprehend, I think we should take it on us. And when the whole world is looking towards India and how India is probably the future, India has always been the future from really long ago. Negative stories on any lake, pond, flooding, contamination will make a headline instantly. There are beautiful stories such as this from across the country, where there is community participation in revival of natural habitats. And there are very many individuals who are doing this day in and day out. Let's actually find such people, support them, work with them, volunteer with them, and let's use platforms such as these to constantly remind ourselves collaboration is the key to conservation. Thank you for patiently listening. Jai Hind.
Thanks, Arun, and thanks for sharing the visual of Devanahalli. Nice to see young people like you out there, and you not just worked in Tamil Nadu, you're saying also in Rajasthan. So Devanahalli also happens to be the town with the first FSTB in India, and it is mostly visited for that. But I do know several organizations take people to Devanahalli to also show the not just the lake, but also groundwater issues and agriculture issues there. So thank you for sharing your idea.
Thank you.
1 minute, Dipender, if I can just join you.
Yeah.
I think Arun Krishnamurthy has really made really valid points, and we have to learn a lot from. I just wanted to refer a book, and we have to learn a lot from our water traditions.
Yes, sir.
Anupam Misra, I think many of you would have already read. Anupam Misra has written a book, Aaj Bhi Khare Hai Talab. Basically, the tanks are still right or still correct. That's the meaning of that. It talks so much about how the tanks were built. But now we are trying to get engineering solution for everything. That the traditions will tell you a lot. Tradition and nature can be the best teacher, and we have all the support of science and technology. I think when we ask this question, as you said, that from where we are getting water, if we are getting it from a very far off place, means there is something wrong. We are failing ourselves. So I think that kind of right question is there. And as you rightly said, we think that river or water body is only for us. It's not at all. So that approach is very much essential. And this is what I was saying, when we get money from government, often we will make a DPR again, looking at the engineering solutions and not having patience to. Sometimes government also puts pressure to sanction things very quickly. So often you have to understand that habitat first, it takes little time and little patience and humility and respect for the natural system. If that is lacking, then we will again end up actually spending a lot of money without much improvement. And then the last is, the question should be what is good for the water body, not what is good for us visually or this thing. Always this should be the talisman in this work, that what exactly will revive this water body.
Yes, sir.
Think of that, talk to them. They will tell you what is good. Not we need very lot of beautiful things, and sometimes we plant some tree which is not at all native there and creates more problem. Thank you. I'm so happy seeing your passion and work in this.
It means a lot to receive this feedback from you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for everything you've done for us also. Thank you.
Okay. Now Raj.
So yeah, I think thank you Arun and thank you Rajiv sir for this insight and the touching upon the various aspects of water bodies, what to look for and how we are dependent on water bodies for our daily life, and how it's our obligation and responsibility to manage these at our own end as well. So with this, I would like to invite Raj Bhagat from WRI again. He had a system issue, so I think he's back. So I think over to you, Raj. It won't take much time from you.
Right. I hope my screen is visible and audible and everything. So unfortunately, I had some issues with the PC and it just crashed. So anyway, I'll talk about studying these water bodies. I mean, currently in this presentation, I'm going to talk about Bangalore a little bit. And the context could be applied for certain cities in South India. Let's say, for example, Chennai and Hyderabad, which have a similar system, which have a similar setup with respect to urban water bodies. Of course, I work with WRI India, which is a research organization. What we try to do is we do a lot of research on one side. And then we try to convert them into policies or more of a we try to bring research into statutory process. That is what we do as an organization, right? So this means that a lot of the work that I'm going to share, and obviously I'll have lots of analytics. Unfortunately, I couldn't share everything over here because it's a short presentation, but our idea is that a city will be able to make planning and governance decisions based on good amount of data and information and a good amount of studies, right? Research is key for us, not emotions and stuff, not a subjective approach. It is not that, someone said that it is great, etc., etc. No, we try to figure out the history of the things, and we try to find out the issues. We try to find the solutions. We try our best to understand the complexities that are there. Now, with that respect, I mean, with this itself, you can understand that I come from a pretty much a planning section, right? So I'm coming from there because when we talk about urban water bodies, it's always there are two sides of things, and one is always focusing on development and the other is focusing on the water body. So unfortunately, the reason why it is not working is that these two are not converging. Which means that it is necessary for us to understand the growth and the development pattern so that we can understand the water bodies and how they have changed over time also. So this is our idea of data-driven decision making. So I bring a lot of analysis. In my case, there will be lots of maps. I love maps, and from that we talk about each and everything, like what's happening, what has happened, what it is, and this is where I tend to differ from a lot of people here itself in the panel. For example, I don't believe in, I don't like to call urban water bodies, particularly in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai, to be called as natural ecosystems or something like that. See, that itself is an invented system. It was not existent before, and it was not there naturally. We constructed it. It is a dam, actually. all the lakes that we have in South India are dams. So anyway, for that kind of an analysis, we try to bring out as much as data as possible, like from satellite resources, from surveys, from ground surveys. We try to figure out through lots of pieces so that we get a comprehensive understanding of what is happening. It is not just with the water bodies, but also with the entire nexus of urban development as well as water bodies, right? Like water resources. And that is where we study, and it is from those concepts what I'm showing right now. So in that context, I'll talk about Bangalore. Like I was mentioning that, these water bodies are not natural. Particularly in Bangalore, it is not. In Chennai, there are a few natural water bodies, like say Pallikaranai, which are like formed because of a mix of longshore drifts, and it is brackish water, and hence it is not being used also. It is a similar pattern, similar to Pulicat Lake or Chilika Lake, right? Like so, which will be present in the coastal areas. But the thousands of the lakes that we call as lakes in Chennai or Bangalore or Hyderabad are all artificial. The British called it as tanks, and prior to that, it will have, of course, different local names, but none of these are natural. And how it has been happening is that, let's say, for example, when we start an analysis, we talk about how it has changed over time, right? Like how these water bodies have changed. So in Bangalore, we are not observing that much surface water bodies anymore. Surface water anymore. When compared to in 2015, when compared with 1990. Now, there are different reasons for it. And there are smaller details also within it. Certain regions, particularly in the peripheries where we are seeing a lot of agricultural growth, is the areas where we are seeing a lot of decrease. And in the areas within it, either it has been converted into built up, or it has been, the water has become much more permanent because, we forcefully, store water in it. Now, to understand it, so why I'm coming up, why I'm talking about the differentiation of natural water bodies and artificial water bodies is very critical. Now, this is, as I said, like this is the context of South India, but it will not be applicable to the Oxbow lakes or the other types of water bodies that you have in the Ganga plains, which is completely different. See, I prefer details like that, like what it is and how it is, and because when we always talk about water bodies or protecting ecosystem, we completely forget the human angle to it. Since it was not natural, that is the most critical one. These have been created by us for our benefits for some purpose, right? Like, but now we are changing it. So we have to understand that there is a human pressure, and we have to be a little bit empathic about why it is happening and what it is. Now, to understand these water bodies in Bangalore, the topography really matters. The topography is what we have forgotten about the city. And it is, Bangalore is actually sitting on the top of a ridge. And on either side, water begins to drain, and it has been always flowing in these valleys. So these are the valley, another visualization of the valley system. So you can see that there is a, this is basically what it is water starts to erode the rocky surface, and it creates pathways. And this is actually what is critical for me. That is my water body, not the lakes. So these ones which were created naturally by water bodies have been lost, and the understanding of that has been lost. Now, in these valleys, water have been flowing. This map actually shows the visualization of how it's moving. And it's of course a rough way. But in that, people started constructing bunds, right? Like, so bunds were constructed along these valleys to prevent water from going from one place to the other. And then, of course, the water was used for the irrigation downstream of it, right? Like, so this is very critical. None of these water bodies are natural, and they have been created for irrigation purpose. Now, this history actually matters right now, because these lakes never had water before human intervention. These lakes, what we call as places, right? Like, so the natural ecosystem of these areas are supposed to be a little bit wet deciduous forest and a little bit of scrub and thorn land actually. But right now we are converting them into a wetland, a forcible conversion of it, right? Like, so that is not natural. We have to understand that. That is actually very, very critical. Now let's see what is happening after this, right? Like, so the first era, they have started creating a bund, and a lake has been created so that the command area gets irrigation, and people live in the ridges, and they start doing this irrigation. Now, when they do it, they completely change the entire drain or the flow pattern. This is during the agricultural era before the urbanization pattern itself. So all the whatever people call as Rajakaluves in Bangalore are remnants of these irrigation channels actually. So they are actually placed in this map. You can see them flowing in the northern side very clearly. They are placed at a higher contour so that much more area can be irrigated. It was, as I said, the natural stream would have flown in the center of the valley, which is in the command area. But because they wanted to maximize the irrigation potential, the new drains had been created. Now, this is change number one that has happened in the natural setting of this, right? Like, so apart from that, there were minor drains also. Now we have to understand that some of the drains were publicly owned, and some of these minor drains were just an understanding between two farmers. It was still a revenue land that was privately owned, and that has been, that doesn't have any kind of a legal backing other than, I mean, the tenure backing is still with the private ownership. Now, when the urbanization process starts, what happens is that it is not the lake that is usually destroyed first. That is actually a wrong perception that many people have. It is usually these command areas. That is the areas which were initially irrigated by the lakes, right? Like, so that is where they start to construct, and they start elevating this section, like, they put more soil and, their typical construction process, right? Like, so, and roads become more like another bund and everything. Now, at that point, the old minor drains which were in the private areas are now gone. Now, legally, now this is, legally there is no problem in it, right? Like, so because the minor areas were, it was still like owned by a farmer, and the farmer wanted to change his land. I mean, who are we to say that they do not have the right to do that, right? Like, I mean, in the sense, like, it is a farmland, and they want to aspire for economic change. And in the sense, like, I want salary for my work. I want to make more money, right? Like, I mean, I have already made money, and I'm already richer. It doesn't give me the right to tell them that they shouldn't enjoy the economic benefits of urban development, right? Like, so that's why they are going ahead with it. And there is nothing illegal about it also. A lot of it is not illegal. A lot of the construction across the valleys are not illegal. They are legal actually. Now this means that over time, when it happens, it completely starts modifying this. Of course, from an ecological perspective, we need the entire valley. But right now, because of this urban development process, the valley has been lost, and it has now been completely urbanized. Now, this is not illegal. I don't like to use the words encroachments also, because these are not encroachments. Only a small percentage of it is usually encroachment. A huge amount of it is usually a legal construction that has happened. It is not the best way to do that, but that is how things have been happening, because there are economic aspirations. This is what many people don't understand. I mean, we can't go and block someone's land that you shouldn't build house, you shouldn't do this, etc., while we sit and enjoy the benefits of such urban expansion. So Bangalore's valley system had changed a lot between 1984 and 2016. You can see over here. Now, what you can see over here is also from these maps is that the original function of that lake has been completely lost. Now it is not storing water for irrigation anymore. This means, and of course the upstream also has changed, which means that there will be a lot of sewage coming in, and there is a rainwater, and there is a need for buffer in that way also. But what is happening is that the lake doesn't have any role anymore apart from recreational activities. I mean, people do walking around it, right? Like that way. A man-made lake, you have to remember this, that this is not natural system. This is a man-made lake, man-made dams, which have lost purpose. And now the thing is, how do we repurpose them, right? Like, so that is where we have to think about it. It is not about keeping water in it for all the time, etc., etc. That is not a natural process. So we have to understand our lakes much better. So it is, as I said, like, for me, the more than the lakes, it is the valley that is important. And those valleys have been over constructed, and you can notice that these valleys or floodplains is where the not the lakes, where the built up has been growing. And it is that which is creating the issue of the flooding issue that you are seeing in Bangalore. So we have been talking about it for so long, and I'll go into it like why it has been happening also. But you can see how the city is growing, and exactly it is growing on top of these. I mean, it is growing on all the places. And when such a city is sprawling, what is blocking those valleys? What is preventing them to construct on those valleys, right? Like there's nothing. Because it is still a highly real estate one. You are being offered prices. All the farmers are owning land, that is their personal land, and they are not having any alternatives. And when somebody is going to say that, I'm going to build an apartment in your land, how do we say that from an ethical standpoint, right? Like, how do we say that you shouldn't build, etc., right? Like, did we give them any alternative, right? Like, that is where I'll go into. So if you look at all the flooded areas in Bangalore in the last 2 months, August and September, you'll notice that almost every incident, every major incident, particularly the repeating ones, will all be placed in these valleys. It is not lakes. It is not any of those artificial tanks or encroachment of them. It is ones that have been happening in the command areas and upstream of those, etc. It is that, and these valleys are the ones that are requiring our attention. Unfortunately, they don't get any attention. Like this is one case with 2 cases you might have seen in the videos and everything, RMG Ecospace and Rainbow Drive. Those are marked in red circle over here, and the green sections are the valleys, and you can see how the water would flow. And we have prevented water from flowing because of a road and because of the construction of a lot of them in the valleys. Now, this is not necessarily illegal, as I said. This is the problem. Now, how this is happening? Why is it not protected? Right? Like, so, as I said, public awareness has always been focusing on these artificial tanks or the lakes and not into the valleys. And every time the discussion is about taking the bulldozer into a place where there is some poor household in the lake itself or something like that, where they are not finding affordable housing within the city, and they are they are squatting in the lake area or closer to lake area, etc., etc. And the bulldozers are always focused on that. But the old topography or the valley is completely forgotten. Only a small amount of it, which comes under a part of a small causeway or something like that, a very small, insignificant area will be protected in the master plan. Now, the city's master plan is the place where everything has to be regulated. That is the statutory document, which tells you where the city grows and where it doesn't grow. And in those master plans, it has not been addressed, right? Like, so even though the current master plan for Bangalore has expired, it has been extended because the new master plan has not been approved yet. But in that, if you look at the same place where I was showing the valleys, you can see that the lakes are protected officially. But the thing is that the valley sections are not protected. Only a small drain path has been protected, and there is a small buffer around it for X meters, and these fixed buffers are not helpful at all. But there is nothing that is telling that you shouldn't, construction in these valleys should be avoided. Now, that is not happening. And that is on one side, how much you have protected within the master plan. Now, the thing is, master plans itself have a poor amount of execution in the cities, right? Like, the reason is, for example, these are the green and the blue areas that are supposed to be, protected in Bangalore as per the master plan. But if you look at the built-up growth, which is shown in red, you'll notice that there is, of course, the previous built-up growth, etc., slightly matched, but you might notice that there is a lot of overlaps between these proposed green spaces, etc. And why is that happening? So right now, more than regulations, it is the market forces that is, talking about where to build and where not to build, right? It is not about regulations. You can always, it does not work that way. So it is in that section that we need to focus. If we want to protect urban ecosystems, whether it is green ecosystems, the valley system that I was talking about, you have to start fixing how the city grows and how the city is built, whether it is within a plot or whether it is about the overall urban expansion itself. So when I say within a plot, how much water is allowed to be percolating and whether it is following the natural one. And in the streets, do you have the sufficient amount of drains? Do you have the sufficient amount of percolation over there also? And in the overall urban expansion, where are you constructing and where, like whether it is the light right now. Now, even in this case, then there are problems with respect to who should build and where it should be, right? Like, so first is that our cities lack hazard and zonation maps for with respect to all these identification of valleys, etc. And the master plans I have not seen any master plan that has successfully included all of these into their documents in any city in India, right? Like, so it has not been included. So, I mean, technically they are not having the capacity also and to produce them. And even if they produce it, it is not incorporated. That is number one. Second is that there is a lot of ad hoc developments that are bypassing, master plans that are happening in the city. It can be all these construction of metro or or suddenly someone feels that there is a requirement for a new bus stand or something of that sort, which has not been accounted in the master plan. And since it is not accounted for, it spurs an amount of development which will happen a lot in these sensitive valleys. So that is second. The third is that there should be financial incentives and disincentives for where to construct and what not, where it should not be constructed. Right? That is not there right now. It can be a tax, or it can be about insurance, but we do not have any form of incentives or disincentives. Whether it works or not, we don't have that. This means that this is the reason why cities are sprawling in these kind of valleys and not going in the non-eco-sensitive areas kind of thing. Right, like, so second is that for already built areas in such sensitive areas, we don't have phasing out plans. Right, like, say, for example, a lot of these lakes which are within these valleys have been converted for public use only. Most of the conversions are not for real estate or what people imagine as apartments or anything. Usually you'll have bus stands or it could be colleges, it could be some form of a stadium or something like that, which is public in nature. And they have these lock-in periods, right? Like, you can't go out and demolish. You have already invested a lot of tax money into it, which has been paid for by the public and which has been demanded by the public as well. A lot of these times, actually, they have been demanded by the public. So in such cases, we have to understand there is a lock-in period for it. And such lock-in periods, we haven't done an assessment of the lock-in periods, their investments, the social and the economic setup of the residents itself, who have authorized the conversion of man-made lakes or any of these systems into a current investment, right? Like, that has not been there. And without understanding that, we don't have the phasing out plan as well. The second is for green field developments, we have not explored land pooling schemes so that people who are owning land in valleys will not be affected alone, so that the aspirations don't get affected over there. We cannot go around and say, put fences around these places and say that you shouldn't build, but rather tell them, but rather create a system, for example, a land pooling scheme where you will allow people to pool in land so that the valleys can be protected while the ridges are better planned, which will increase the value. I mean, the total land available will be reducing, but the total value will be increasing, so that the economic aspirations of the people who are owning the land will not be affected. And the lakes in the urban context have to be repurposed. And we have to understand that this repurpose is, we have to understand that this is not an irrigation tank anymore, and that we shouldn't be even focusing on maintaining the same type of it. So that I prefer a scientific and a historical understanding of these lakes, and based on that, it has to be repurposed, and it can be used. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to remove the lakes, but you can always use it for other purposes. Like, say, for example, right now I want to use it as a buffer for my flooded areas. or I want to use it temporarily for recharging groundwater, since currently we are not supplying enough water for people. Right, like in those cases, we can repurpose it, but it doesn't mean that you have to, talk about lakes alone, but the entire valley has to be worked around it. So this is a infographic that talks about land pooling. For example, you have these parcels, and of course, in this one, I didn't show the water bodies, but you can see how the green areas have been assigned, etc., etc. But based on rather than abrupt construction that is just happening, where people just buy plots and just go and build over there. Rather than that, you have a pooled or a planned system. I mean, of course, this has been experimented in Gujarat and other places. But these kind of systems is what will reduce the pressure on building over these valleys. That is where the protection is, and that is where the possibilities are for future development, right? Like, so that is my goal. I mean, in the sense, like, to conclude, I'll say that we have to study our lakes better. We have to understand the entire ecosystem, not just the lakes. Lakes are just artificial ones. We have to talk about the valleys, and it is in the protection of valleys that Bangalore, Hyderabad, or Chennai have their future. And if you want to protect these kind of eco-sensitive areas, the thing is, it is not within a water body. It is actually in the urban development one. It is in the development authorities' master plans and the strategic plans that the cities have on how they grow, where they grow, etc. Those and the bylaws that are there for construction, and that is where the solution is. And that is my conclusion. Thanks.
Thanks, Raj, for this enlightening presentation. And we also at CSE believe that the lake itself is one part of the story. You have to look at the larger catchment, the command area, and the valleys as well. So I think we'll also discuss more in the next. One request to all the speakers, Prasanna and yourself, and if Arun is there, you can just answer questions on the chat, on the Q&A box as well. There are some questions related to you, and even if you feel there's an answer you want to give to separate question, please do that as well. So I think please go ahead with that. And with this, I did invite Prasanna for his presentation. So Prasanna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dhruv, and happy to be here. Glad to be here. I'll quickly share my screen. Yeah. So is it visible?
So visible, yeah. Please.
All right. So I think Rajiv sir in the beginning, they have set up the context pretty well for the entire workshop. And thank you, Arun and Raj, for sharing their perspectives about the water bodies and how they can be rejuvenated or they can be taken care of. And so I'm also going to talk about a couple of case studies which I've worked on in Pune area and in Maharashtra as well. So I'll briefly talk about two case studies near Pune, and then about one river which is near Sangli district. So in my company, basically, we work on three areas. We work on ecological rejuvenation of water bodies. We also design biological wastewater treatment, and we also do some ecological landscaping. And I think all the three aspects are really important when we are looking at a holistic approach, as mentioned by Rajiv Ranjan sir, and also from the past two presentations, what we have seen is we have to consider the lake as well as a water body as well as the watershed for that. So so here we go. So this is the first case study that we worked on, which is a Nala near Vadgaon Mawar in Pune. And so this is supposed to, so Vadgaon has a very good catchment area. It's a high rainfall area. And these are the stormwater runoffs, and along the stormwater runoffs, there have been establishments, houses, and some of them, they've been discharging their wastewater into the stormwater runoff. And over the years, it was converted into a nala carrying wastewater. So this wastewater essentially at the downstream, it goes into a river called Indrayani River, polluting the water of that river. And so we did some interventions in that area, like excavating it. We also did some bank stabilization using boulders or stones which are locally available. also did some plantation riparian vegetation specifically. And so there were certain factors or identifying factors that we came with, like what we did for canopy restoration and riparian vegetation. So that helps in biodiversity improvement, that helps in carbon sequestration. And so for flow regulation, we constructed a smaller bunds where flow regulation is required because, as I said, there is a lot of wastewater which is discharged in this stormwater runoff, and that needs to be treated. So flow regulation helps in increasing the dissolved oxygen content of that water as well. Bank stabilization is required because over the years and over again, the silt from nearby areas is getting deposited because of the heavy rainfall, and those banks needed to be stabilized. And aquatic biodiversity was in the dire need of improvement. So this is one photo. This is another photo from the same Nala. And again, why I have put this photo, because this area had a very high human intervention. So there was a temple on one side and there was a housing society on the other side. And in the left-hand photo, you can see one concrete pipe coming out, which was discharging a lot of grey water into this stormwater runoff. So what we did was we tried coming up with a system where that water is at least partially treated and the cleaner water goes into the stream. We did some plantation, flowering plants for aesthetic improvement. And so what was the requirement of aesthetic improvement is we wanted to see what is the effect of better aesthetics on people, and we could actually see some behavioral change, or people were more aware, or people enjoyed that area, and then the solid waste that was dumped into the water body was pretty less. So solid waste, it had to be removed in the beginning. And over the period of time, we realized that with the aesthetic improvement and with the better quality of water, people have stopped dumping waste into this. So this was one of the stormwater runoffs which was converted into Nala, and we tried doing some interventions on it. Here is another case study, which is for a pond. And so this pond is a part of one of the biggest public parks in Pune called Sarasbag. And so this pond is entirely concretized. So it's a man-made pond again. But however, it faced a lot of issues. As in April 2019, when we visited the place, it looked something like this. And so this is water lettuce, something related to water hyacinth, which we all know of. And so it covered the entire water surface. It was killing the aquatic biodiversity which was there. It was killing the fish. Turtles had no place. So we decided to do something about it. And with some volunteers, with support from municipal organization, municipal corporation. So we started initially with removal of the pistia, physical removal. And over the period of 4 months, we worked on this project. And every Saturday through volunteers, we worked on this. After the removal of this water lettuce, we always had a team which would look at even growth of one leaf in that water body, so that it can be removed and it does not propagate, because it is not the native species of that particular area. And we also did introduce some stone structures, or something called as a modified crossvein, or we also added some wooden logs, which helped as landing spots for birds and resting spots for turtles. And due to these crossveins, there were spots made, or they formed, which helped in breeding of fish also. So this was the change that we could see over a period of time. And these are some of the before and after photos of the same place. So these were the 2 case studies which we did in or around Pune. And now I'm going to talk more about a river restoration, or river rejuvenation, as we call it, because restoration and rejuvenation are quite different. But a river called Kamandalu River, which is in Sangli district, near a place called Kauthe Mahankal. And so we've been working since April or May this year. So it's been around 5-6 months. So the background of this place is Kauthe Mahakal is a small town in Sangli district, and So essentially, it is located on the banks of this river called Kamandalu. So that's one more aspect that we always say that river flows through my city or my town, but essentially the town is located on the banks of the river. And so we also had to look at the public opinion about the river, because in Kauthe Mahakal, people had stopped believing that it was a river, and they were calling it a small stream, which was neglected and polluted. And it also had some historical background, historical importance. The picture of the goddess that you see. So this idol was procured by a shepherd few hundred years ago from the same river, and it is located on the banks of that river. And that gives this river some religious and historical importance as well. So we did a lot of survey on that. We did ecological surveys, hydrological surveys, hydrogeological surveys, water quality and quantity estimation. We also did public interviews. We also asked elder people who had seen I would say, the previous form of the river, which was more soothing than what it was right now when we saw it. So after doing some preliminary survey, we also tried to identify the problems that were there. So main problem was wastewater discharge into the river. Then solid waste dumping was happening quite a lot. Soil erosion, because on one side of the river there is the town, or there is a big road which goes through, and on the other side it's agriculture. So from agriculture area, there was a lot of agricultural runoff along with some silt which was coming in. And there was a lot of sludge deposited. Because of all that wastewater, there was a lot of eutrophication happening. And we also identified that there was lack of awareness in these areas, because people were, as I said, people were not aware that it was a river, and they used to call it just a stream. So these were some of the initial pictures that we had taken, that entire surface was filled. There was a lot of eutrophication. There was a lot of wild growth in it. And because of these, there were problems like foul odor, mosquito breeding, which people were facing. And as I said, lack of awareness. People used to dump a lot of garbage in the river. And because of the silt and sludge deposition, the water carrying capacity of the river reduced a lot. And because of that, in monsoon or in heavy rainfall, the water used to gush into the city, and that used to enter into the houses and temples and shops of people. So these were some of the problems that we identified. So after identifying the problems, main task for us was identifying different stakeholders who were involved with this river. So there were some direct stakeholders, indirect stakeholders. So we talked to the local government, also talked to the politicians in that area. And so basically this project came up as an idea as a result of discussion with one of the young political leaders in that area, Mr. Rohit Patil. And so we talked to different NGOs, we talked to funding agencies, and we got some political support. There were a lot of temples along the river in that area. And because of that, there was a lot of religious waste getting dumped into the river. So we had to talk to all these temples to provide the infrastructure required for either getting rid of it, or segregating the waste properly, or processing the waste in a better way. We also talked to tourists and the residents in that area. And after identifying these stakeholders, what we tried to do is we did the mapping of these stakeholders. And we did the mapping according to the interest and influence of these different stakeholders. So in the small map, you can see we tried to place these stakeholders in their perspective, in their respective quadrants. So we also got a mixture of or a good amalgamation of residents who had high interest, who had low interest. However, they didn't have that much influence. On the other side, we had politicians and ULVs and local youth groups and the temple authorities who had quite a lot of influence in that area. So after the stakeholder mapping, we got all the stakeholders together, and the designing and planning stage began. So we had a lot of surveys again. We talked to all the people in that area. We sat with maps and what can be done. We also had to look at um, the maps of that area and where what was the width of that river before. Because when we are looking at any ecosystem, we need to have a reference ecosystem for that, and the reference comes from the historical know-how about that area or some ecosystem which is in the same geographical zone. So we did a lot of work on that. We did some visualization so that people could understand what we were planning to do in that area as well. And when the work began, the work was divided into certain stages. So we started with some excavation of the deposited silt. So in this work, we got some support from NAM Foundation. They provided us with the excavation machinery and the fuel which is required. And Agrani Urban Foundation, they gave us a lot of support in terms of funding, which was required. So we introduced a lot of loose boulder structures in that area after doing excavation. And so on the right-hand side, the picture that you see is one of the wastewater inlets from the town, which was getting into the river. So we also included some constructed wetlands and wetland systems or phytoremediating plants in that area to treat that wastewater, or at least partially treat it before it reaches the river. And there were multiple areas or multiple places like this where wastewater actually entered into the river. So we were working day and night. So for the banks, we used some coir lining or jute lining to actually hold the surface soil layer. And we also did some plantation of riparian vegetation in that area. So on the left-hand side here, you see the place where we kept all the plants and whatever vegetation we removed from there. So that was basically used further. So we are using that biomass for creating biomass pellets. And it also has some medicinal value. So we are also using the corns of that to for medicinal purpose as well. So these were the things that we tried doing. And along with that, although execution was important, we also thought that awareness of this work amongst the stakeholders as well as residents was equally important. And we had multiple meetings with the stakeholders. We had meetings with temple authorities. We had meetings with local youth. So these are some of the students visiting the area. On the right-hand side, you can see a meeting with all the temple authorities. We were trying to explain it to them that how religious waste getting dumped into the river can harm the ecosystem as well. And all these political leaders also joined us in volunteering activities for cleanups, as well as they also used to visit the site every now and then to check the progress of the work. So we held a lot of activities like this with the residents to make them aware of what type of work that we were trying to do in that area. And we also generated a lot of local employment, because from Team Lemnion, there were only 3 people who used to be there. But apart from that, we had a local supervisor. We could give employment to around 60 people for around 4 months. And for them, it was a big relief. And they were really happy that they could work on their own river. And when they saw the change in the river, they were really satisfied with the work that they were doing. And it was a very welcoming change for us, or it was like a certificate for us that they were really happy to work on this. And now, essentially, after monsoon, the phase 2 will begin, and where these guys are equally excited as we are. So now post-monsoon conditions. So this was the work that we did in a couple of months, or 3 or 4 months from April to June. And so we waited in monsoon to see how things turn out. And the good thing was the water which used to gush into the city every monsoon, it did not happen this time, because the water carrying capacity of the river was increased substantially. And also the banks were stabilized, and there was a lot of plantation. And with the better water carrying capacity, the breeding of fish started, and people started enjoying the new view that they were getting. So these are some of the photos. So the land use was better. You can see on the right hand side that there are some fun activities going on, and there was a lot of plantation which started looking better. So I've purposely put the picture in the middle. So these ladies are actually drying their clothes, and this is gonna. So we are gonna address these the problems like these also, and we are gonna make them aware of better practices for this, or make special arrangements for such communal activities as well. So these are some of the pictures of how the place looks like right now. And so there is a lot of future proposed work which will happen in phase 2. So we are also going to look at the maintenance of the work that is being done. And we did the initial water quality analysis. So now as the phase 2 begins, we'll do the water quality analysis again. And we are also planning some natural walkways or some landscaping for better land use, for better reach of people or residents to the river, and how that interface can be modified in a better way. So these are some of the before and after pictures of different areas, and so that will give you some idea about how the river was before and how the river looks now. And we are hoping that so whatever interventions we have done, so we haven't used any concrete in this area. All the natural material or which was available in the surrounding area, we have tried using that, and the place looks much better now. So again, as I said, because of the silt and the sludge, there was the water carrying capacity was reduced. On the right hand side, you can see one of the source of wastewater which was entering into the river, and because of the system now, the water quality is better in the river. So yes, these are some more photos of before and after. And we could also see some behavioral change, because recently in Navratri, they have a huge festival in that area. And as I said, the goddess, it's very popular amongst the tourists. And there were around 4,000 to 5,000 people in that vicinity, or in the vicinity of the river during Navratri. And we could see the people from Kauthe, or from that village that we knew, they were telling the tourists not to throw any garbage into the river. So we could see the change in them. We could see the sense of ownership that they had about their own river, and that was the behavioral change that we were looking for. And I think awareness, behavioral change, along with right execution of right interventions. So all this is required to, I think, come up with a good rejuvenation or good transformation of any water body or a river. And so this is something that we did for them, as in to make it like a tourist attraction, or to make them feel better about their own area and their river as well. So I think that's the end of my presentation. I would quickly like to share a video. Dhruv, is it okay if I share the video?
How long is the video, Prasanna?
3 minutes.
Yeah, please do share the video. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Kauthe Mahankar, a small town of 25,000 people located on the banks of river Kamandalu. It is said that a shepherd found the idol of goddess Mahankali in this river, and hence the name Kauthe Mahankar. This river used to be healthy, teeming with life, but over the years, primarily due to human intervention and with further neglect, it became a small polluted stream. Encroachments in the riverbed, construction of the road, further reduced the width of the riverbed. This led to decreased water carrying capacity. Dumped solid waste and wastewater discharged from town added to the pollution. Fast forward to March 2022. This problem was noticed by a dynamic young politician of Maharashtra, Mr. Rohit Dada Patil. With his vision and initiative, the Kamandalu River Rejuvenation Project was planned. Lemnion Green Solutions, a Pune-based company, did the survey and designed the interventions for the project. Team Lemnion has successfully rejuvenated many streams, open drains, and ponds so far. Many stakeholders were involved in the project. NAM Foundation provided the excavation machinery and fuel required for the project. Agrani Urban Development Foundation and R.R. Patil Jnana Prabodhini provided the funds required for the project, and the work began. This work would not have been possible without the help and participation of the locals. Almost 250 students, 100 villagers volunteered for the project. Around 60 local workers obtained employment for 3 to 4 months thanks to the project. Solid waste, accumulated silt, and uncontrolled growth of taifa were finally removed from the river and water was visible. To improve the quality of water, it was necessary to treat the polluted inlets from the town being drained into the river. Today, the natural systems set up at these inlets treat approximately 6 to 8 lakh liters of wastewater every day. The treatment reduced the foul odor and minimized mosquito breeding. To stabilize the banks and prevent soil erosion, various native tree varieties were planted. Stone pitching and coir lining was done on the banks. Moreover, bunds and in-stream structures were built in the riverbed for water flow regulation and creating habitat for biodiversity to return. Structures of loose boulders were created as required. As a result of this work, the river started becoming healthy again. The river was now alive. Aquatic life is reviving. Fish, crabs, and aquatic plants reappeared. Birds started coming to the river. The transformation of Kamandalu River is becoming a welcoming experience for people of Kauthe. The beautiful appearance of the river now makes the villagers happy and also pleases the goddess Mahankali who came to meet the villagers through the river. So yeah, so that's in a nutshell the project that we worked on, and I think what I've tried to say is the entire process of any rejuvenation or any addressing any water body, it requires a lot of work, right from the survey, identification of stakeholders, identifying the problems, then proper designing and planning for the same. And if you remember from the video, there was a road next to the river. And this road was supposed to be the part of the river. So I would say on the other side of the road, you can still see the historical parts of that river. So that entire road is in the riverbed. And there were a lot of constraints. And when we are working with any water body, there are going to be constraints all the time. And sometimes we have to find a way around and still work on efficient or effective techniques to achieve something which is required. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prasanna, for this case study and the amazing video. And I think we would also love to visit this site sometime very soon. I think the monsoon impeded our visit. So I think we are 10 minutes behind schedule. So I'll just quickly walk you through the CSE presentation and research on Delhi. So just give me, I'll share my screen for just a moment.
Not sure.
Okay, so just sharing my screen. I hope you can see my screen now. So I think looking at the context being set by Rajiv Mishra sir and presentations by Arun, Raj and Prasanna, we also want to culminate the process of water bodies management and just have a test case example of Delhi, of how it's been done in Delhi. So I think a lot of concepts discussed in the previous presentations on the aspects of water bodies management, the issues they're trying to address, have been covered by the speakers. So we'll just I'll just focus more on the aspects of governance from the government side of doing things and how they can actually take shape in Delhi. We're talking about 3 water bodies in Delhi being done over the past 5 to 7 years. So I think I'll just skip these. Another slide is the definition of urban water bodies. I think a lot of discussion is happening on whether it's urban or rural, man-made or natural. But I think the Amrut Jal Shakti Abhiyan, they have clearly stated that urban water bodies includes lakes, ponds, step wells, paulis, traditional ones, new ones which are used for meeting water requirements. So I think in the purview of water body rejuvenation under the Amrut or the national flagship missions, a lot of these do get covered. So I think we are beyond the discussion on whether it is a man-made body or a natural body. So I think that is there. So I think whatever the practitioners might implement, it all falls under water bodies management. And these water bodies, they store water, they store groundwater, and they also improve the amenity of the area. So I think I'll look at the approach CSE actually trying to say, like what discussed previously, was that the water bodies is a measure of the catchment. So if the larger catchment will reflect in the water quality, in the quality of their buffer, in the quality of the biodiversity in that place, and that land use in that entire catchment has an impact. So I think your land use change, like pointed out by Raj and by Arun and by Prasanna, they actually dictate a lot of interventions being done in the water body itself. The pollution load in the water body is reflected about the catchment. If it's an industrial area, you have more industrial fluids coming in. I think those you have to understand. So your interventions have to go from beyond the water body itself at times. So I think some issues which we also think might not be very clear to normal practitioners, like water bodies, they lack we have poor land records for water bodies. Master plans don't necessarily understand water bodies. The land records are pretty old. A lot of stakeholders are involved in water bodies management. It's very unclear what their roles. We have overlaps happening all the times. And most cities don't have an inventory of water bodies. I mean, I think a GIS platform for that is very, very important. It's a mandate under the wetland rules as well. So I think these issues are also, it is beyond the normal issues of sewage inflow or waste dumping. It is also about land records, stakeholders, conflicts, lack of inventory of water bodies. It's also about lack of awareness among people. So people don't know what kind of commitment is required from them. There's a lot of mismanagement in terms of understanding of lake dynamics. So how do you want to actually manage your lake? What is the exact problem? What kind of species do you want to actually preserve? Want to plant in those lake areas, and also trying to understand how temperatures and geography plays a role. You cannot have a strategy for a lake in an arid area, same as a lake in a coastal area. Similarly, you can't have a proposal for a lake in Bangalore and you can copy it for a lake in Delhi. So I think those dynamics have to be understood before you make a model project for lake as well. And other issues around runoff being polluted, waste being dumped, land cover being modified in the watershed. And the associated links have been discussed in detail by the previous speakers as well. So I think we want to focus CSE's approach on water sensitive design. And under the approach, we look at water bodies management at a city and zonal scale, where we believe that water bodies both include wetlands, lakes, and ponds, and also stormwater streams in the urban fabric. They must be protected and they must be realized as local water resources. And you should actually have like Rajiv sir mentioned, a comprehensive strategy in the master plan or the larger planning dimension, and look at water bodies management from that respect, and then look at different aspects of water body management, be it shoreline protection or pollution abatement. A simple conceptual understanding of the approach CSE advocates is having a four-step approach. Look at the catchment area, understand the urban catchments, to help you prepare long-term strategies and have sustainable land use planning practices being developed. You look at the shoreline and the buffer area, and how can you use those to maybe have pollution abatement implemented over there, maybe have a recreation zone over there. How do you want to address encroachments at the immediate water body? And you also want to look at the storage area. How do you actually manage the water quality inside the lake or a pond or a wetland? How can you focus on aquatic biodiversity in those areas? So a lake management strategy should actually focus on all these four aspects. It might not be in one project alone, but they have to be a part of a larger scheme of things. For example, the Bhoj wetland regeneration started in the 1990s, addressed all these four issues at a larger temporal scale. They included STPs in cities, included recreation areas, included buffering in master plans. So I think the process should be a long-term process. A short-term process will obviously be ending some point of time. So I think with this, we want to the message is that we have to move from an approach based on beautification, aesthetics, and landscaping, because they don't address all issues. We have to move towards an approach focused on source sustainability, which can be we can actually manage the water bodies, and you look at them as water supply sources for groundwater recharge, for enhancing biodiversity, and also to enhance the resilience of cities against the changing climate. So I think the approach being undertaken by most places in big cities largely tend to focus on beautification. They have to go beyond that. So I think 3 examples from Delhi play an important role in trying to understand how this actually gets manifested in cities. So I think Delhi has 1,000+ water bodies. They're all mapped in Delhi, and more than 80% of these are in the rural part of Delhi. So did we encroach them while developing Delhi's master plan? That's to be understood. Maybe over the past 50 years, we have taken water bodies, their command areas, their catchment areas. Now we have filled those water bodies up. And not one water body scores good on the health index. They all have issues of being filled with sewage, which is treated or untreated, being dumped by construction debris, being encroached upon, and they are so no water bodies are in a good condition in the city itself. Now, Delhi government has a vision of doing a city of lakes, and why they want to also one more thing is that there is obviously a correlation between water bodies and declining groundwater levels, water bodies and flooding incidences. And correlation may not be very apparent, but it's always there. So I think water bodies, be it small or big, they have played a role historically in Delhi in trying to understand geography and hydrology as well. So I think those have to be taken into account while preparing a strategy for cities' water body management. Again, in Delhi, the DJB's view is also to look at water balance as how can water bodies improve the water balance in the city. So Delhi has a water supply of 910 MGD. 86% of that water comes from outside the city, and the demand per se is actually 1140 MGD. Now, what the DJB thinks is that if you have a deficit of 230 MGD, can we secure this water through local water resources? And the idea is that if we have a lot of water bodies being revived in Delhi, can they allow for groundwater recharge of a secondary supply source so that they can actually reduce dependency on the external water resources? We at CSE believe that we should go beyond the deficit as well. We think that water body revival should be beyond deficit, should be a more holistic approach in trying to address local water needs, not only in your average, but also in your summer season, in pre-monsoon seasons. Now, the first lake done by Delhi was the Rajogri Lake. Rajogri is a small town or a small urban village in the southwest part of Delhi. And it was the first project undertaken by the DJB and the INFSC in Delhi. It was hailed as a model project for lake management in terms of what they did was they had a water body, an old water body, which was in a bad state. So they removed some encroachments from this side, and then they prepared a treatment system for water purification, which is a sedimentation tank and a reed bed system. Now that had a cost of around 77 lakhs. And they also proposed a very scenic landscape around the water body, which includes stormwater drains, swales, open gym, a chhat area, and also a park around the water body, which was a cost of almost 1 crore. And this model, based on this model, DJB developed an SOP for urban lake management in Delhi. How do you want to revive water bodies? Now, the fallacy of this project, no matter how good it has been initially, it has failed to actually tick mark most boxes of water body regulation. Why I say that, I'll show you now. So if you look at the photos given by the DJBs, this is the lake before implementation 5 to 7 years back, and this is the photo taken after the implementation. Now, if you look at the Google image of the lake back in 20 years back, it's sometimes in a rural state, it was an area of 1,500 square meters. With most natural or organic development happening in the outskirts, the lake was reshaped to a circular water body, having an area of 1419 square meters. Now, after the intervention, what you've seen is that they have made this beautiful landscape features, but the area of lake has gone down to 50%. So the water holding capacity of the lake has actually gone down. That's a pre-monsoon figure. Looking at the post-monsoon figure, we see that the area actually goes down by 1/3. So a post-monsoon water holding capacity of an area spreading across 3,000 square meters comes down to 1,326 square meters only. So I think before we jump to the conclusion whether it's a good or a bad project, the idea is that the original lake, which was approximately 3,000 square meters high flood level, is actually gone down to 1,326 square meters. The other part is that no matter how much you have a treated waste system being input in a small pond, the water quality will not be as per your designated norms. Now, as per the NGT norms, the NGT guidelines, the BOD of a treatment system should be below 10 mg per liter. Now, when in trying to get that to 10 mg per liter, there have been discussions on putting chlorine in the water. So if you put a chlorine system in the water, you actually kill the biodiversity. You will not find fishes, you will not find organisms, you will not find the system in place to actually handle, say, mosquitoes, for example. So I think the system itself has to look at beyond landscaping. This is a perfect example of trying to look at landscaping and aesthetics and not looking at the water resources in the larger context. And mind you, it comes at a cost of almost 2 crore rupees. Another example was Neelawas Biodiversity Park, another lake in South Delhi, a lake which was the system of treatment is they use an NBS solution. They have an oxidation pond or a pond in beside the lake somewhere over here under the flyover. They use a conveyance system, put it in a natural wetland system, and they have a lake which is revived. So in this, what we have seen is that the performance of the system is actually good. They have they do tick mark on all the parameters. Now this lake was a flyover was built on this lake in the Commonwealth Games times, and a lot of waste was being dumped inside the water body. So the residents filed the PIL in the High Court, and the High Court told DDA to actually revive this lake. And the DDA submitted to the High Court that we'll do a biodiversity park over here, and they gave this lake to the Delhi University by the team of C.R. Babu, and they made a system of natural wetlands in the yellow box in the last photo, and based on this, they are treating the wastewater. Now again, as per our discussions with them, the entire cost of it was less than 30 lakhs. So I think, and an area 10 times of Rajokri. Again, the process is different. The process is entirely different. The location is entirely different. But if you look at the definition of what we understand as lake management, it is looking about water sustainability. It has shown improvement in the water quality. There is a lot of biodiversity happening in this site. And when we go to this site, we don't find mosquitoes even in post-monsoon season in the wetland itself. So I think in terms of cost versus the area of lake revived, it's better than the Rajokri model. Can this be done for all water bodies? Time will tell, because wetland system do take space. But yes, for large water bodies, this is a good method to identify nature-based solutions and trying to manage water bodies per se. Another example is the Pochanpur Lake in Delhi. So this is a very classic example of how master plan can actually not look at lakes as lakes, but as parks or as housing areas. Dwarka is a sub-city planned in Delhi in the past 25 years. And Pochanpur Lake is a lake situated inside one of these planned areas. Now what they do is basically so Dwarka has separate stormwater and blackwater drains because of a planned city. And what they do is, there was a historical pond called Pochanpur Lake. And the current system is that they direct the stormwater from this point and it allows it to fill the lake, and they leave it like that. There is very minimal or no blackwater coming inside the lake. They do have a dewatering system being considered on this point, but it's not in use as of now. And this lake was being revived by the local community itself. They led by Mr. Diwan Singh under the Yamuna Bachao Andolan. He's a resident of the Pochanpur village, and he and his team have been under loggerheads with DDA to actually revive this lake. Now, what are the benefits of these lakes? When the lake was revived, they look at the TDS levels in groundwater in the nearby areas, and they were improved TDS levels after the lake was actually revived. The idea is that Dwarka as the area is actually has poor water supply, and a lot of residents do take up groundwater extraction as a secondary source. So the lake actually revives groundwater as well. So I think this was the entire angle from the community. But the key point was that in the master plan, there is no water body over here. So DDA actually had a footpath right through this lake in the original plan. So the master plan still does not talk about water bodies as they are not protected in the water in the master plan itself, and that gives power to authorities to actually fill these lakes, make it a park or make it something other than that. Dwarka has around 67 such lakes, out of which only 4 are existing as of now in terms of planned development. So I think what Raj mentioned about planned encroachments of lake is a reality. We tend to only take our bulldozers to the poor people who actually live besides the lake, but the larger question of equity of rights in cities actually also, you will not see a bulldozer in a planned area to take down those planned areas to revive lakes. So I think the 3 case examples actually showcase different level of stakeholder engagements. So in the Rajokri case, in spite of making an entire park around the lake, it's kept under lock and key because the fear of it going back to a stage of waste dumping. Because there is no community association, because there is no community relation, you fear that the residents will pollute the space again. In the Neela House Lake, we see that the processes are beyond one size fits all. You need to understand the lake dynamics. You need to adopt a biodiversity approach to treat wastewater, especially for larger lakes. And the third example is about a classic case of planned encroachment of lakes through all legal development and how citizens can actually play a role in trying to revive these lakes. And now these small water bodies, I mean, for the geography of Delhi, water bodies of a size 1 hectare is the most common. Out of 1,000 plus, 80% of those sizes. And a lot of your planned areas don't have any more water bodies. So I think this is the 3 different dichotomy of management of lakes in Delhi which we see. Something for the unplanned areas as well. Maybe we can look at urban lakes and informal areas and how can we actually manage those. So our next step is to actually look at urban villages. How do you revive water bodies in those spaces? We are still working on this as a model, but we are still trying to understand how this can be revived using ecological aspects or biodiversity aspects. Just to summarize, I'll just skip this. Just to summarize what aspects of water body management should be focused on. It should focus on resource sustainability and developing local water resources. You should analyze the catchment and look at the linkages of water body with stormwater, groundwater, and wastewater. Map your buffer and buffer areas as per biodiversity needs and pollution management techniques. Community is a very important role. They play a very important role in trying to implement and manage the water body itself. Land use planning through master plans or any other planning document or an inventory of water bodies is a very important part in trying to understand water body management. And also, we should drop the model projects and one size fits all. It does not work. So Delhi government is doing 22 lakes as per the Rajokri model as of now. It is bound to fail because it will not fulfill all the objectives. They will probably get a 200 mg water deficit, but not the lake per se. So drop that approach of one size fits all and look at context analysis and then a proposal for regeneration. So I think with that, I thank all of you for this, and we can have a small discussion, 5 minutes. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Dhruv, for this wonderful presentation and bringing up the direct case studies which are very much relevant and very much useful for us to go from the learning to the implementation, and it was really wonderful. Going towards question and answers, since most of the question and answers has been already been answered by our experts, but there are a few which we would like to take up over here. And in any case, if we are not able to answer all the questions here, we will take it up through email. We will send you the mail with the answers. So yeah, and if anyone who wants to raise a hand and ask a question can raise their hand. We will take it up for.
So the presentations will be updating our web announcement in the coming week. We'll upload the recording of this session and all the presentations if the experts allow us, the PDF version of it. So it will be online and we'll share the link with all of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who wants to ask a question can raise their hand.
Tanya. We have Tanya.
Yeah. Yeah, Tanya.
So Tanya, can you unmute yourself and address your question? And please make sure you mention who the question is for, please. You can unmute your mic. After Tanya, we'll have Vihangraj. Yeah, please Tanya, go ahead.
All right, I just raised my hand to say thank you to everyone and for the really amazing work that was showcased today, especially to Professor Mishra for the very humble way of showcasing how the government also learned through the projects. Thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. So I think Vihangraj, if that's pronounced correctly, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Dr. Kulkarni from NIT Silchar. It was a very good program to attend because we are here working on the biological, essentially we are working on the biological quality of the river stretch in Silchar, where we have the Barak River, which is, and in Assam, the rivers are mightier than the rest of the India, and they have the very high assimilative as well as the discharge capacity. So apart that, I just have one point, and in NIT Silchar, I'm happy to mention it is the campus which carries 23 number of lakes. So the lake quality is not the very same as used to be. It used to be earlier, as the senior faculty members suggest. So what kind of measures we can take for the restoring the water quality? We have studied the water quality parameters as a part of our BTech programs and student projects. In that, I just have one question, that this riparian vegetation, and what is the invasive vegetation? Means when you say the invasive vegetation, I do not understood. So is it the one which are not the native to the particular place? Is it so?
Sandha, can you take
The speaker
Yes.
may answer, I suppose.
Sure, yes. Usually, yes, the invasive vegetation. So at times, something that is non-native is considered as, so basically it is considered as foreign species. And it becomes invasive when its growth hampers the native ecosystem of that place. So it can compete in terms of nutrients, in terms of geographical area, in terms of use of things. Because let's say if we are talking about trees or plants, having a different species and overgrowth of a different species can also hamper the other biodiversity as well. For example, the habitats for birds, or the number of butterflies or number of bees which are involved. So I think all these things are involved in the answer for this question.
Okay, yeah. I understood this.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So I think the other participant, I think we have Harsha. Can you please unmute yourself and talk and ask your query?
Are you telling Harsha now? Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Nice explanation. And because of Diwali vacation, I'm today free because no staff, no students are over here. Just I'm very much concerned of our Maharashtra Nature Park. We are there for these things opposite Dharavi. I'm talking about Mumbai. And being a principal of B.Ed college, we do take action research and our students are good in research. So just I have kept one question. Though before some years, there was a flood over here because of Mithi River and all that are overflowing. But even though after so many years, nothing has been done fruitfully. So if we can take such projects and we can have these kind of things, then it will be better than just, it will be application part. So I think once sir has responded, he is coming to Mumbai and he will talk, then it is a good thing. We can go ahead with that. I think one seminar or one conference I have attended at CSE, Ahmedabad, and then again nothing happened. That's right. Thank you very much. Thank you for it.
I think we'll just take 2 more for interest of time. So I think we first have I think we had first Dhanesh Garg and then we have Ojaswini Mehta. So I think we first take Dhanesh, then we can move to the last. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon and thank you very much. So today it was very good, program organized by user, and especially we here came to know about very good case studies, especially from Mr. Bhagat and Mr. Prasanna. So my question is from Mr. Prasanna about phytoremediation, because you mentioned about the phytoremediation. You did the phytoremediation in riverine ecosystem, in improving the riverine ecosystem. So means in phytoremediation, plantation has dense plantation has been done, or means a couple of constructing wetlands was done. So I want to know about, because phytoremediation is the process, because bioremediation is the first process, then second process the phytoremediation. So only about I want to know phytoremediation means it's a dense plantation,
Yes.
like popular plants or something else, or yeah.
All right. So there are, thank you for the question. So there are different species which are considered as phytoremediating plants. And why these are considered as phytoremediating plants? Because of their ability to extract, or rather pick up nutrients in a very fast manner. And essentially, it is a type of bioremediation because finally, on the roots of these plants, there are microorganisms who convert the complex organic or all the nutrients that are in the water to simpler ones, and which are utilized by the plants for its growth. So essentially, it is about all the microorganisms are the basic task force in this phytoremediation process. And why they are called phytoremediation? Because they grow pretty fast. And I think you only asked the question about why did you remove some of the typha? Because what we want, so all that typha was growing because of the excessive nutrient content in the water, and which was hampering the water flow regulation and water carrying capacity. So basically, it was causing problems like mosquito breeding and water stagnation. So we had to remove some typha from some areas. However, wherever the source, so we identified the sources of wastewater, and at the sources, we tried to implement again all these phytoremediating systems to treat the water which was coming into the river.
Yeah, got it. Thank you, Mr. Prasanna and the entire team. And I would also thanks to the entire team of CSE who organized this a very good program.
Thank you, Dinesh. I think Ojaswini, can you unmute yourself? I'm sorry, Prasanna, Raj, we just 2 more minutes. Ojaswini, please can you give
Hi, yes, am I audible?
Yeah, please.
Hi, so good afternoon all, and a very thanks to all of the presenters, the speakers, and the organizers for this wonderful session. My question is directed at no one in particular, it's just an observation. So I have 2 observations in particular. So firstly, for the management of lakes, I believe that we also need to establish some risk models that can also be linked to the institutional mechanisms for the maintenance of these lakes. So for example, in establishment of such kind of risk models, we can understand what kind of failures can occur at these lakes. So for example, it was mentioned that in one of the lakes, a highway passes by. So for example, if there is any kind of an accident or a chemical spillage, or if there is any kind of mishap that occurs, so how is that particular mishap encountered? What are the roles and responsibilities of the various institutions that are involved in the maintenance of this lake? That is first thing that should be taken care of. The other point that I want to make is that I guess there are a lot of maintenance and monitoring mechanisms that have been established, and many kind of best practices that have been mentioned in US EPA and other kind of best practice documents. So I think we can also have a look at them, and probably we can establish such kind of mechanisms for our lakes as well. So for example, we can have, I'm not a lake or a hydrology expert, I'm just kind of speaking from whatever I heard in the presentations today. So for example, if we could have such kind of mechanisms. For example, monthly, we should be monitoring so and so parameters, or on a quarterly basis, we should be monitoring so and so parameters. And if this parameter is not conforming to the standard benchmark, so and so steps should be taken. So I think establishment of risk models and establishment of a maintenance and monitoring mechanism can go a long way in ensuring that our lakes remain protected and their protection is sustained over a longer period of time. And for many of these, I guess, community participation can have a crucial role to play. So that was all that I wanted to put forth for today.
Thank you, Jaswini. Thank you. I think we just take one more Ramalingam because I think you unmute yourself, just be quick, 30 seconds max.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good session, very really quite informative, and I like to share some of our experience in Trichy, an academic exercise on a Uyakondan Canal, a man-made water body across the Trichy city, which has been done by the Cholas towards water management and irrigation system, which has been misused, underutilized, and things like that. An academic exercise turned into be a very interesting urban project now. It had all the phases of what's been explained, and now a stakeholder meeting and everything, and then volunteers every Sunday. More than 150 Sundays, volunteers from all over the place are involved in that. A new forum called Citizen Forum of Uyakondan formed, and all those things. And a small bit has been reclaimed and coming under very good use of that. And we are planning in terms of distributed treatment, this thing, because a lot of sewage are coming from the settlements all along. It's about 9.5 kilometers across the city. And a part of it has been involved in included in the smart city scheme, which is becoming very vibrant. And of course, few of us are involved in that. I just wanted to share that. That's it. I think thank you. But it's a great informative session. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ramalingam. And I think now we are actually a little over time, so I think we would direct the questions in the Q&A box if not answered to our speakers, and they'll respond via email. So we'll share those with the speakers. We're also sharing a couple of links in the chat box. So I think in this month, in November, December, we'll be doing our residential training programs on WSUDP, Waterbodies, and DWATS. And we all invite you to register the program. It will be advanced training at our campus in namely 100 kilometers from Delhi. Prasanna has been there a couple of times, I think so, and he can vouch for the training atmosphere and the learnings from that course. So I think Shivani has shared those links on the chat box. So I think those who are interested to know more in detail in trying to understand the planning and designing mechanisms for SUDS features, rainwater harvesting features, lake management, wastewater management systems, please do register for the training program, and we'll get back to you soon. So I think with this, I thank all speakers, Prasanna, Raj, Rajiv Mishra sir, and Arun for the valuable time for this webinar. And we thank all the attendees to stay on board for the entire duration. And we apologize for the over delay in this one. So I think with this, a good discussion was done on Waterbodies. So I think keep looking at our webpage for the proceedings of this webinar and the recordings. And we hope to meet all of you very, very soon in our training programs and our conclaves. So thanks again, Prasanna, Raj, for your valuable time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much
Have a
for
good day,
inviting
everyone.
us.
Bye. Have a nice day. Thanks a lot. Bye, participants.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.